What's up YouTube? I'm going to be doing the full reassembly of my luger. So I'm going to start with the recoil spring and the recoil section. I've got obviously the recoil spring holder here and the pin that holds it in place. So I'm going to insert that into the bottom of the gun and then put it back in position. So the pin's in place now. Next I'm going to insert the recoil spring. This is actually more difficult than it looks. It's actually a lot more difficult than it looks. But you have to pin the recoil lever in the spring, insert a punch behind it so it will not bounce off the spring, and then use something to lever it or twist it or wind it, whatever you like, into place. And it's all good until you get to the end where it becomes quite difficult to actually twist. Now you see it on video and it looks fairly easy to do, but take it from my words, it's not easy to do at all. It's far from easy, but it has to be done. It doesn't look that difficult when you watch it on camera to actually hold a spring whilst you wind it into place, but trust me, it's not as easy as it looks. Okay, so you can see that is almost in place. I've just got to clear this little last bit of spring and then we'll be able to pull the drift out and try and insert this into the gun. Okay, so now we've got the spring fully compressed with the rod hooks at the top of it. We've got to get the hook to go in that rectangular hole and then hook onto the bar on here, like so. So we need to compress it into there. But the best way of doing it is putting it in sideways, like so, rather than like that, which is the way it's got to be. So you can put it in sideways, so you can see it can easily get through the rectangular hole and then twist it whilst it is in place, which makes it a bit easier to actually get in as such. But it's not easy no matter which way you do it. Okay, so it's now the spring is now hooked onto the recoil spring mechanism. So it's good to be able to be put back together. So I'll zoom out a bit and lift the camera up so I can get the rest of the components put back on. Okay, I'm going to start with the magazine release mechanism, and that fits in here. As you can see, there's a groove that slots in place as such, and that sits nice and flush. Then we have the magazine spring. This has a groove in it which sits in the notch just here. You can just make out the notch. And then that slides into the little cutout section on the actual button, so that can be sprung. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is put the safety back together, starting with this piece. You just have to look underneath for the little cutout section, and this will slide in. Like that. I'm just going to lower the camera down so you can get the next part. and then we can put the actual lever in place, and then we can get the pin again, and that pin goes in position from just inside here, and I'm going to push that back in place. Like so. And obviously you can just check over here if it actually is in place, and then you can do a safety check, see if it works, which it does. Okay, I'm now going to put the magazine grips back on, which is pretty simple. I'm just going to lift the camera up a bit so you get a better angle. And these just slot in and screw into place. I wouldn't over tighten these, as you might crack the Bakelite grips. You definitely want to put them tight enough that the screw is not going to be loose and come undone. So just sort of tight, but not over tighten. That's that in place. So next I'm going to put the trigger in place. This just slots in. I like to make sure the spring goes in there properly by just putting a screwdriver tip down there, just so it goes in nice and properly, which it clearly does. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is put the lock button in place. This just slides in and clicks into place, and like so. Okay, whilst we're inside the gun, I'm just going to put this component back into place. You can just slide it in, and that sits in there nicely. Okay, I'm going to go back to the toggle now. Toggle mechanism. Okay, the spring goes in at an angle, like so, and then you can slide this in. Now this has rails in here, which the end of it actually slides in. You can just catch the end of the rails there, so these bits actually slide into place, and then you have to put pressure on it to compress the spring. Then whilst the spring is compressed, you need to push the pin in, which holds it all together. This can be quite tricky. Okay, so I'm going to use the end of a screwdriver just to compress it. As you can see, the spring is just compressed there, and the pin is just sliding in. There we go, that's that mechanism in place. Just check, see if it actually works, which it does. Okay, so now I'm going to place in the firing pin mechanisms in here. Spring and the the liner. Now you have to watch out for this, because if you look on the end of the screws, it will focus. You can see there's a bump on this side, just here. Now that outcrop area sits in this runner-up line here, so you have to put it in at this angle, so it will sit in there, and then once you have it in place, you can just twist, and then it will lock into place when it's vertical. And that is the toggle back together. Next I'm going to go back to the barrel of the gun. I'm going to zoom in and show you how I put the series back in place. Okay, so we start with the larger piece of the series, and that has the groove there. Yep, and then this little spring part here will slot in at the back, and then you get the little leaf spring with the hook, that will slide in this side. It's quite easy to actually slide that in place. You just sometimes need a bit of a nudge. There you go, that is slid in place. Check to see if it actually works, which it does. It's doing its job. On the back we have the longer bar spring, and that just slots in like that. Okay, so that's it for the barrel. I'm going to go and put the toggle back together. If you press the sears in, it makes it a lot easier to go back in place, and then you can put this pin back together. Now this pin slides out really easily, so what I suggest you do is actually cock the gun and push it back, which just puts a bit of pressure on the pin so it won't slide out as easy. And then you can insert this into the gun. Upside down is best, and then make sure the toggle end goes into the groove. Obviously there's the little hooks on the side of the recoil spring mechanism there that I showed you, where the actual bit of the toggle sits. At this point I'm going to put the magazine back in, and I'm actually going to cock the pistol, which makes it easier to lock it in place. But first you need to put the side plate in. Obviously I took the side plate apart, so now it's in multiple pieces. So now we've got to put the side plate back together. Okay, so the side plate slides in like this, and then you have to just put this pin back in. It's a little tricky because it's a really small pin that you are dealing with. It's best to make sure that the two pieces of metal are lined up. There you go. And I'm just going to get the screwdriver attachment now, so I can fold it back over and push it into place. There we go, it's clicked into place now. And now we are good to insert it into the gun. It just slots onto the side and pushes in. The lock can be gone over, and then you can pull the magazine out and the gun can be put back and fired, so you can do a full function test, make sure the safety works, which it does. And that is how you take apart and put back together a luger. If you didn't see the disassembly video, you may want to go and watch that, as this is only the reassembly video. I'm also going to be doing a separate video on how to take apart the magazine and what is inside the magazine. So if you want to know how to take apart a magazine for a luger, go and watch that video. And that is pretty much it for this video. So thank you for watching.